Welcome back. Now, wholesalers in Nigeria's biggest IT market, popularly known as the Computer Village, say their businesses are running at a loss as Africa's biggest economy faces currency shortages. The central bank removed the peg on the Naira a month ago, but has been unable to maintain an initial rate of 280 Naira.
Serving customers at his shop in Nigeria's biggest IT market, wholesaler Emmanuel Gabriel wonders how long he can survive the hard currency shortages that are paralyzing Africa's biggest economy. The central bank had entrepreneurs like him in mind when it abandoned an overvalued Naira peg last month, as low oil exports have hammered the currency and public finances. We thought actually it would affect the price of forex in Nigeria, but instead of coming down, the thing went up. So there has not been any significant change for the better. The bank hoped that allowing the currency to lose a third of its value would attract investment and erase the need for a black market where the Naira has fallen versus the dollar some 40%. But a month since the float, Gabriel and most vendors in the market still have to buy dollars for a premium to import the laptops, TV sets, and computer software to sell.
Almost every business is being run at a loss now. We are only hanging in presently to make sure that, hoping, just against hope, that things will normalize.
They have seen increasing prices by more than 20%, but it is unable to pass on the full devaluation. Customers struggling with annual inflation jumping to a decade high of 16.5% in June will stay away.
To get a laptop now, the standard we want, we're going to be designing architectural designs and stuff like that. For the fact that we're going for a London use or the fairly used ones, we're getting a very higher rate, like times 3 or times 5 of what we used to buy.
In all of this, the economy is said to be on the brink of a recession.
Is Nigeria in recession? Technically, if you go into 2 quarters of negative growth, technically you're in recession. But I don't think we should dwell on definitions. I think we should really dwell on where we're going. And I think if we are in recession, what I would like to say is we are going to come out of it, and it will be a very short one, because the policies that we have will ensure that we don't go below where we need to go. And I think with what we're doing, we will begin to turn the corner, I believe, by Q3.
On Friday, the central bank sold dollars on the interbank currency market after the rate fell to a record low of 331 Naira per dollar. The Naira firmed to 300 per dollar after the intervention.
I believe by Q3.
Many will be looking to the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, for answers on how to address the worsening shortage of dollars at the end of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting on Tuesday.
And as the inflation rate continues to rise, foreign currency scarcity persists, and the economy is still grappling with the severe impact of the oil price crash. All eyes are on the committee to see what the outcome would be. Now let's talk to the Managing Director and CEO Cowrie Assets Limited, Johnson Chukwu, to get his views on this. Good afternoon, Johnson. Hello, good afternoon, Johnson.
Good afternoon.
Right. So what kind of policy direction do you think the MPC will be announcing tomorrow after the meeting?
Well, I think tomorrow's decision is going to be a difficult one for the MPC because they have 3 contending issues or 4 contending issues. The issue of inflation rate, the issue of contracting economic growth rate. They have to deal with the issue of exchange rate, Naira devaluation. Those factors are going to be actually pulling a different direction. If you ask me, I think what they should do is to keep the rates constant. I mean, the MPR rate at 12%, and then keep the liquidity ratio at 30%. But then they need to drop the cash reserve ratio. The cash reserve ratio of 22.5 is quite too high given the level of liquidity in the banking system. I think we have to reflate the banking system. Something has to give in. For now, we have to live with the inflation rate. We need to stimulate the economic recovery, irrespective of the fact that we're going to suffer high rate of inflation, because you can't fight both at the same time. So I think what they will do is keep monetary policy rate constant, then reduce the cash reserve ratio to below 22.5%, and then keep liquidity ratio at current level of 30%.
Now let's look at what's happening at the Forex market. A lot of people have asked this question of what benefit is the new FX policy when Naira has continued to depreciate, dollar scarcity has persisted.
Well, the key thing is that the benefits are not supposed to be overnight. Simple reason that the policy of adopting a flexible exchange rate is to encourage other sources of inflow, such as home remittances, export of non-crude oil, and then to also encourage foreign portfolio investors and foreign investors. Those things are not supposed to materialize overnight. But the good thing is that we now have a relatively market-reflective exchange rate that adjusts according to market demand, forces of demand and supply. But in the meantime, we need to ensure some level of stability. And that stability will come when the price of price formation is normalized. When we can say, okay, the exchange rate is 300 Naira to $1 or 280 Naira to $1, and that rate rules over a reasonable period of time. So you have some level of certainty. It's only when we achieve that you then begin to see those flows that triggered, that actually inform the decision to adjust the exchange rate. So I think it's beyond the fact that people are looking at the immediate effect. But unfortunately, the interbank market has not been sufficiently supplied. Once CBN improves supply in the interbank market, you're going to see stability in the exchange rate, and then those benefits of encouraging or engendering flow from foreign portfolio investors and others will begin to materialize. But
then what is delaying this improvement of supply? Because that seems to be the problem here.
Well, I think a couple of factors. One is that the central bank does not have a limitless war chest. But I think at this point, they must have seen the wisdom to use the resources they have to begin to provide liquidity in the interbank market. Because once you provide liquidity in the interbank market, you will observe that even the parallel market rate will adjust downwards and the margins will thin out. If you observe what happened on Friday, by that time the central bank intervened and sold $5 million to each of the market operators, you will saw rate drop from 331 to 300 or 307. Today, we are seeing even a reduction in rate at the parallel market because of that intervention on Friday. So if CBN can, on a weekly basis, inject about $100 million into that market, in the bank market, I am almost sure in the next 6 weeks, that they would have met all the outstanding demands in that market. And then we will achieve some level of stability in exchange rate.
Now, at this stage, Nigeria we've seen the IMF downgrade its growth forecast, and the second quarter GDP is likely going to come in negative. What should the monetary policy and the fiscal authorities be doing at this time?
Well, a couple of things they need to do. The monetary policy has mentioned that one is that we need to inject liquidity into the system. What is happening now is that the banks are de-risking their balance sheets. And therefore, the lending, credit, the private sector is going to thin out. So that will further slow the economic growth. We need to inject liquidity into the system. We need to put money in people's hands. I'm happy that when I looked at the figure for federation allocation for the month of June that was shared in July, the figure has moved from about 238 billion to about 559 billion. And that was principally driven by the adjustment in the exchange rate. Because though they claim that it came from taxes, the increase in tax revenue was because petroleum profit tax was converted at a higher exchange rate. The increase in custom revenue also because custom duties were paid at a higher exchange rate. They added to the 74 billion that came from exchange rate gain. So with the adjustment in exchange rate, we're going to see a lot of more liquidity going to the federal and state governments. And therefore, regularity of salary payment will improve and inject liquidity come back into the consumers' hands, and they will see an uptick in demand. I also expect that, like I mentioned earlier, that the monetary policy authority should reduce the cash reserve ratio and allow the banks more liquidity so that they will enjoy better liquidity and then resume the lending activities. That's on the monetary side. On the fiscal side, I expect that the government will have to come up with a framework that will allow it to concession some of the commercially viable infrastructure to the private sector. That way will attract liquidity or funding from both private sector funders locally and internationally. I always use as an example.
Thank you for your thoughts, Johnson Chukwu. As Johnson Chukwu, CEO, Carry Assets Management Limited. We'll take a quick break now. When we return, we'll take a look at what's happening at the foreign exchange market today. Do stay with us.